Part 3. The Rising Threats from the East. While the West crumbles under the weight of its own incompetence, the East is not just rising, it's preparing. The global power balance is shifting, and 2024 has made one thing abundantly clear. The East sees opportunity in Western weakness. China, Russia, and Iran have become increasingly bold, exploiting the chaos and division in Western democracies to advance their own agendas. But this isn't just a geopolitical struggle, it's a battle for the future of the global order. China's strategic expansion. China's ambitions are no secret. For decades, Beijing has been quietly building its power, both economically and militarily. But in 2024, the quiet phase ended. This year saw a level of aggression from China that can only be described as a prelude to war. The focus, as always, was Taiwan. Chinese warships and fighter jets have made the Taiwan Strait one of the most dangerous waterways in the world. Daily incursions into Taiwanese airspace are now routine, a clear attempt to wear down Taiwan's defenses and normalize Chinese military presence in the region. Beijing's rhetoric has shifted too, from vague threats to outright declarations that Taiwan's reunification with the mainland is inevitable and will be achieved by force if necessary. The United States, traditionally the guarantor of Taiwan's security, has offered little more than symbolic gestures. While arms sales to Taiwan have continued, Washington's failure to take stronger action has emboldened Xi Jinping. The Biden administration's repeated emphasis on diplomacy and economic sanctions has done nothing to deter China, which sees these measures as toothless. In Beijing's eyes, the United States is a declining power, distracted by domestic turmoil and incapable of defending its allies. But Taiwan is just the tip of the iceberg. China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, long dismissed by the West as an overly ambitious infrastructure project, has become a cornerstone of its global strategy. In 2024, the BRI reached new heights, with Beijing deepening its control over indebted nations across Asia, Africa, and even parts of Europe. Ports, railways, and telecommunications networks built with Chinese money now serve as levers of influence, giving Beijing unprecedented reach. Meanwhile, China has continued to build its military capabilities at an alarming pace. The Chinese Navy, now the largest in the world, has expanded its presence far beyond the Pacific. In 2024, Chinese warships were spotted conducting joint exercises with Russian vessels in the Arctic, a region long dominated by Western powers. This isn't just about military strength. It's about signaling a new era of Chinese dominance, Russia's calculated aggression. If China is playing the long game, Russia is playing the immediate one. The war in Ukraine, now dragging into its third year, remains a central piece of Vladimir Putin's strategy to reassert Russian power. Despite Western sanctions and military aid to Ukraine, Moscow shows no signs of retreating. In fact, 2024 has seen some of the most brutal fighting yet, with Russia launching a major offensive in the eastern Donbas region. The West's response? More money, more weapons, but no real plan to end the conflict. The United States and Europe have poured billions into Ukraine, turning the country into a proxy battlefield between NATO and Russia. Yet for all the resources spent, Ukraine remains on the defensive, its infrastructure in ruins, and its population exhausted. The longer this war drags on, the more it benefits Putin. For Russia, the war isn't just about Ukraine, it's about weakening the West. By forcing NATO to focus on Eastern Europe, Putin has created opportunities elsewhere. In 2024, Russia strengthened its alliances with countries like Iran, Turkey, and even China, creating a coalition that stands in direct opposition to Western interests. Joint military exercises, energy deals, and arms sales have all increased, signaling a new era of cooperation between these authoritarian regimes. But Russia's ambitions don't stop at Ukraine. In 2024, Russian-backed militias began operating more openly in countries like Syria, Libya, and the Central African Republic, expanding Moscow's influence in regions long neglected by the West. These actions are part of a broader strategy to undermine Western dominance and create a multipolar world order. Iran's proxy wars. Iran has been a quiet yet dangerous player in this global chess game. While much of the world's attention has been focused on Ukraine and Taiwan, Tehran has been busy expanding its influence across the Middle East. In 2024, Iran's role as the puppet master behind many of the region's conflicts became undeniable. The Israel-Gaza conflict has become a full-blown proxy war, with Iran supplying weapons, funds, and training to Hamas and other militant groups. This year saw some of the deadliest attacks on Israel in decades, prompting massive retaliatory strikes. But while the bombs fall, the real winner is Iran. By keeping Israel, and by extension the United States, bogged down in endless conflict, Tehran has been able to pursue its own goals with little resistance. One of those goals is the expansion of its nuclear program. Despite years of negotiations, sanctions, and threats, Iran is closer than ever to becoming a nuclear power. In 2024, intelligence reports revealed that Iran had enriched uranium to near weapons-grade levels, sparking fears of a new arms race in the Middle East. Yet the West's response has been tepid at best. Diplomatic efforts have stalled, and military options remain off the table, leaving Iran free to continue its pursuits. Iran's influence isn't confined to the Middle East. Through its network of proxy groups, Tehran has extended its reach into Africa, South America, and even Europe. In 2024, Iranian operatives were linked to several terrorist plots in Western countries, including a foiled attack in Paris. These actions are not isolated incidents. They are part of a deliberate strategy to destabilize the West and expand Iran's power. The new axis of power together, China, Russia, and Iran, represent a new axis of power, one that is challenging the West in ways not seen since the Cold War. These nations, despite their differences, share a common goal: the dismantling of Western dominance and the creation of a new global order. In 2024, this axis became more coordinated and more aggressive, exploiting every weakness and division in the West. What's particularly alarming is the lack of a coherent Western response. The United States, bogged down by domestic issues and a lack of leadership, has failed to rise to the challenge. Europe, divided and distracted, has been equally ineffective. Meanwhile, countries like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, once reliable allies, seem more focused on internal politics than global threats. The result is a power vacuum, one that the East is all too eager to fill. The events of 2024 have made it clear that the West is no longer the unchallenged leader of the world. For the first time in decades, the balance of power is shifting, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Are we preparing for war? The question we must now ask is this: are we on the brink of a new global war? The signs are hard to ignore. China's aggression toward Taiwan, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and Iran's proxy wars all point to a world hurtling toward conflict. And yet, the West seems